Hello and welcome back to another episode of Raw and Real with Stefanie Fernandes. I'm Stefanie, your podcast host, Rapid Transformational Therapist and founder of Your Freedom Program. I work with women who want to take back their life, returning to themselves on their healing journey. In this podcast, we give the stage to women who overcame adversity and trauma and difficult phases in their life. Be ready to get raw emotions from real people. The stories we share here are to inspire women just like you that anything is possible. In today's episode, we will be talking about caring for a close relative with cancer. The day-to-day lives of women around the world share one important characteristic. Unpaid care work is seen as a female responsibility. According to the OECD, women spend 2 to 10 times more time on unpaid care work than men. The unequal distribution of unpaid care work between women and men represents an infringement of women's rights and also a brake on their economic empowerment. Caring for a close relative in such a difficult time of their life can also trigger old wounds and pain. Today's guest is Michele Finn. Michele helped her mother through leukemia and bone marrow transplant. She describes this journey as a beautiful challenge of strength, compassion, and forgiveness. Her experience led her to become an aromatherapist and cannabis educator. Michele started her own line of essential oils and CBD. Hello, Michele, and welcome to the show.
Hi, Stefanie. Thank you so much for inviting me here today.
Thank you so much for coming forward and sharing your story with us today. I'm particularly excited about this episode as I was working with essential oils as a registered nurse and love to hear how you came to develop your own line and how you're using it basically in your work. Your life changed with the onset of illness of your mother. Please tell us your story today.
Thank you. Yes, so it was about 6 years ago. We had finally settled into a new home. We had been here for about a year, and it was the first day of our summer break. And I received a phone call. We were literally in the driveway getting ready to go for a family walk and, set off for our summer fun. And the phone call was like, your mom is in the hospital. It's very urgent. You need to come now. And I'm the oldest of 6 children, so from a blended family. And so I had to, hand off my toddler to my husband and tell the kids, sorry, I've got to go. And I had no idea what was waiting for me. We knew she had not been well, but we didn't know what was going on. They thought maybe it was the flu or, and so when I arrived at the hospital, they informed us her blood count was at like a 5 and it was supposed to be like a 13 or something. And I was like, oh, you just give her some blood and we go home, right? And they were like, no, that's not how this works. So within the next, 12, 24 hours, of course, they ran out. I'm sure they had an idea of what was going on. And we found out it was leukemia, and it was an acute lymphoblastic leukemia, which was moving very, very fast. Had moved very fast. So from there, it wasn't one of those cases where they were like, oh, well, you have this cancer starting, you have some options, to look at. Like it was and pretty much immediately life and death. So we were very lucky. We're very close to the James Brown Cancer Center in Louisville, Kentucky. We're over in Indiana, and they were right across the bridge. So she was offered the best care that we could ask for, so we really lucked out there. But honestly, the treatments are so harsh, the chemo, the radiation, the living in a hospital for months and months at a time. We really had to pull together as a family and pull together our resources. And honestly, I had lost my father really young. So my family has always struggled, to hold things together And not only am I the oldest, but I guess I'm just the one that I'm like the family secretary, the family, the family lawyer. I'm not a lawyer, but it's, I do all those things. I like kind of hold everyone together. So I was lucky enough that some of my aunts stepped up too, along with my baby sister. And, just as a family, we took this on. And I started realizing that a lot of what she needed during these treatments was care that the nurses were not able to provide because they were doing the medical side. They couldn't sit and spoon feed her when she was weak. They would have loved to. They would have had time. They couldn't just sit there and hold water for 30 minutes, getting her to sip enough. Just all those little things I started realizing is what it really was going to take. And I started bringing in essential oils. And at the time, I was very new to essential oils. I was just making sugar scrubs and, making gifts for Christmas is really how I got started. And I had no idea that it was going to allot me the advantage of aromatherapy in my mother's care. And we discovered that, even little things like putting lavender on her pillow when she was having anxiety attacks, and, all these procedures, just pile on, and putting peppermint on her stomach to help her digest, when she didn't want to eat. I just started with these small little things that anybody could do. And they were life-changing for her. And honestly, for the nurses too, because I was blending up roller bottles and I'd bring them in and share them with the nurses stations. And they would be like, "Oh, you made us roller bottles?"
But how did you came in touch with this? How did you get to know this?
Well, so a neighbor of mine was with an MLM. She was with doTERRA, and she had brought some oils over to me. She's like, "Oh, you have to try this." And I'm an avid organic gardener, a bit of a naturalist. Like I go hunting for mushrooms in the woods, because I know how. I've been trained, things of that nature. And so I've always been a holistic style person and into plant medicine and wellness. But I had never, essential oils were new to me at that point. Well, you can find some really basic information online. And as I got further into it, what I realized is you can also find some bad information online. There's a lot of misinformation about ingesting oils and about using them non-diluted or undiluted on your skin. And I started realizing that I could also do damage with these oils that were benefiting us. So I was listening to a podcast from Dr. Axe, it was a summit, an essential oil summit, and it was experts from all over the world. And I found out that, he had helped his mother through cancer, and it really started me on this journey because I started following these scientists that he had mentioned, the ones that I resonated with. And I found out that one of them was from my hometown. So it was like 20 minutes away. I was like, oh my gosh. So
what are the odds?
Yes, it just blew me away. And I was like, okay, don't stalk him. So, but I did, I just messaged him and I was like, this is what I'm working with. This is my mom's condition. Where do I learn how to do this properly? And so he's like, I have, he has a course, but his is more chemistry based. He's like, what you need is a caregiver, an aromatherapist. And so he sent me to one of his colleagues, his friend, and I've been studying under her for the last 5 years, something like that. And so that was life-changing for me, because instead of me getting my science from Pinterest, I was getting it from an aromatherapist who's been studying for over 30 years. So that was life-changing.
And how did it impact the care that you gave for your mother? And how did your mother feel with this?
It allowed me to bring safety and more knowledge into this caregiving. And it kept me from doing anything that would cause more harm, because, as caregivers, we're trying so hard to be helpful. And so it allowed me to continue to help her without putting her at risk by accidentally hurting her with a non-diluted oil or ingestion or something of that nature. And it broadened my horizon on, beyond lemon, peppermint, and lavender. So I started learning about spruce and basil and bergamot and frankincense, and it just really, really broadened that horizon.
And your mother felt well with it?
She loved it. Because if you can imagine sleeping, well, I believe you said you're a registered nurse. Yeah. So, all those hours in the hospital setting where there's not a lot of smells, right? Everything's disinfected, it's clean. So to bring in the essential oils and for her to smell, say, sweet orange from Greece, and, just remind her, I would also use some storytelling with it. I'm like, Mom, smell this orange oil. Like, can you believe these came from Greece? Like, there's an orange grove somewhere in Greece. People are probably picking the oranges right now. And, I would use those kind of visual interactions to help cheer her up and help her be somewhere besides in the hospital bed.
Yeah, it's all setting the mind on a different level, right? When you are in this same environment all the time, and you can focus so much on your pain and how unwell you feel. But if there is some other input, I love that, that input is not only through smelling, but really you start feeling it in your whole body. I saw that when I also used lavender for patients who had panic attacks and anxiety attacks, especially at night, when they would be laying alone in the room. It was dark, and after surgery they would not really feel their bodies. They would just you feel like you are one piece of body, but you don't feel your arms, you don't feel your back. And a drop of lavender on a small pillow next to them on the bedside table. And of course, you also need to take maybe 5 minutes to help through this first phase of anxiety feeling, just helped wonders. They didn't need sleeping pills anymore. So I love that you came across this.
Thank you. Yes, and I love that you incorporated it into your work. I think if we could if that would become a norm, that people would have that little extra touch, I think it would do so much for the world.
And it seems also that for you, it just was a missing puzzle piece, that you are already very open to alternative and very natural ways of supporting our bodies.
And we did discover that, so basically those oils, they would help bring joy, whether it was comfort, joy. And we were like, well, what else does that? Music, we made sure that she had a radio in her room at all times. And she had certain CDs she would listen to. She had her contemporary Christian rock that she likes, so we had that on a channel for her. And it was, her nurses got to know what tools they had to help comfort her. And it was really funny because there was one in particular, his name was Ben. He would, even if he wasn't on her station, like she wasn't one of his patients that day or night or whatever, but he was there, he'd pop in her room and make sure her radio was on the right station and was turned up to the correct volume and that she was comfortable. And then he'd go back about his business.
That makes all the difference. Isn't that nice? Yeah.
It is. It really is. And so yes, we had the radio. We had children from the family color pictures for her, and we taped them up all over the room. What else did we had a couple family members come in with guitars and sing for her, and the music it just did so much for her. So art, music, aromatherapy. We cooked for her as often as we could. And she's a very picky eater. And she likes her Coca-Colas. And I'm like, Mother, you have a cancer eating your bones. and you want a Coca-Cola that's going to continue to eat your bones. Like, it would go through me sometimes. I was like, oh my gosh, like I can't buy you a Coke. Like, it's just, of course, I have to get over myself. I'm like, okay, I will buy you a Coke, but just know that I really wish you wouldn't drink that Coke right now. But, there were just things like that were her comfort and helped her so much. But she started eating foods that she normally wouldn't eat at home. Like, I would make her some really dense, nutritious soups. And there's a certain mushroom called turkey tail mushroom. And I would put that, it's almost like you use it like a bay leaf. And I would use that when I was making her soups to get those extra nutrients in there. And hyssop tea, she would get chronic pneumonia from after the bone marrow transplant. And hyssop tea was really, really helpful for breaking up the mucus. And, there were just all these things that I started putting together until we had a routine. We knew when this was happening, we needed to do this, and it really helped us comfort her. It helped the nurses. It relieved some of their workload and pressure. And it helped get her through. And, unfortunately, not everybody makes it through a bone marrow transplant. And she's still with us. So we're still chugging along with our caregiving.
When you look back, what would you say was the hardest thing of that time?
Being away from my children so much. That was really challenging. Like, I had to choose between helping my mother live through these treatments or being present for my children.
And they were little?
They were 11, 7, and 1.
Oh.
Yeah.
I can imagine.
So, yeah, that was very challenging. It definitely, it set my husband back at work because he was constantly picking up the pieces, because I was trying to stay mentally together and, keep all the balls in the air. And we almost lost her so many times. And she's just, one of her doctors, he was so sweet. He would, I remember him holding her hands one time and he was like, "You are like a cat. You have 9 lives. You're the most resilient person I have ever met."
It's a compliment in this case.
Yes. Because we kept, she would, it would be like, something really bad would happen and they would do all their stuff and we'd do all our stuff and she would make it through. And we were all like, wait, did she really make it through that? Like, whew, and then a month or two later, it'd be something else, and it took quite a bit. But then I learned about CBD. The same scientist that led me to the aromatherapist, he taught me about CBD. And he was like, "Have you ever heard of it? Have you tried it?" And I was like, "No." And I was very open to it. And a part that I kind of skipped is when, because I wasn't thinking about the CBD or the cannabis yet. When we brought her home after the bone marrow transplant, she was very weak. I don't remember how many days or weeks it was after the transplant, but her time at the hospital was done and it was time for her to come home. And she was not strong. So we get her home and within a couple of days, she stops eating, she stops drinking, and she stops taking her medicine. And what those are signs of, right? And I was like, "Mom," and she was very young. She was 57 when this started. I was like, "Mom, do you want to stay or do you want to go? Like, I'll take care of you either way. Just let me know what we're doing here. Cause I don't want to push." It was so hard. I didn't want to push her to stay. Like, it was her choice, So she's like, "I want to stay." I said, "Okay. All right." So I got on the phone with the doctor and I was like, "Hey, this is what's happening." I was like, they're like, "We don't really know what we could do." And I was like, "Well, can you prescribe Marinol?" Which is the synthetic cannabis, synthetic marijuana, because all the symptoms she was having are things that cannabis is known for helping with. And they were like, "Oh, well, we can, but insurance won't pay for it." And it's like $900 for a prescription for 1 month. And I was like, "What? $900?" And I was like, Okay, thanks. So I hung up with them and I called my cousin and I was like, hey, I know you partake and I need some of those herbs for my mother. So, I mean, what else are you going to do? So I'm not a person that's out breaking the law, like I'm on the PTO, come on. But my mother was laying there and she needed help. And there was not another pill in the world that was going to fix it. So sure enough, he was like, yeah, give me a couple hours. So we met up. I got the goods. I went home and made her these little tiny muffins. I'm just Googling online how to cook with cannabis. And I made her these little tiny blueberry muffins because I know how much she loves blueberry muffins. And I told the kids, look, the house is going to smell funny for a little while. I'm sorry. Like, I got to make grandma some medicine, right? So here I am cooking cannabis in my kitchen. My kids have never smelled pot in their lives, And so I make these little muffins. I get over to her and I'm like, Mom, I had to work really hard to make you these special muffins, and she's just laying there like, go away. I was like, no, really, Mom, I worked so hard. You'll try them, won't you? She's like, fine. I had to guilt her into it. And I mean, so she got one down and she's like, okay, thanks, like leave me alone. And then a few hours later, a family member got her to eat another one. And by the next day, she's sitting on the side of her bed and she's eating a muffin on her own. And yes, she didn't remember what was in them. Like I told her, but she didn't remember. And they're just sitting there on the side table, like the whole little container of them opened up and she's popping one. I was like, Mom, I was like, do you remember what's in those muffins? She's like, no, but they're really good. I was like, how many did you eat? She's like, oh, this is my first one this morning. I was like, okay, let's put that lid back on. But they saved her life. I mean, cannabis saved her life.
But it's a huge obstacle if it's so expensive to purchase.
Yeah.
It's
illegal. We can't. I'm in Indiana. And it's cannabis, marijuana is still illegal in Indiana. So I broke the law to buy her marijuana, cannabis, to put in muffins so that she could heal and be well enough to take her medicine. And it worked.
Yeah.
And it's, I don't know. It's like, I don't really go around encouraging people to break the law, but when you have someone that sick, like, why did I have to break the law? Like that should just be available for anyone who wants to take care of themselves or a sick loved one.
Yeah. So can you tell me a little bit more about the benefits of CBD and essential oils that you're using?
Yeah, for sure. So after that happened, like I hadn't really thought about cannabis since I was in my early 20s. It's like, oh, I'm done with that. Like, I followed the laws, I followed the rules. I didn't need it. And then it just kind of got me thinking. And so then I learned about CBD from that scientist, and he's like, if you want to try it, I know a very good manufacturer in your area. And so they sent me some samples and they educated me on it, and it reduces the inflammation. CBD reduces the inflammation in our bodies. It helps resolve like anxiety issues, and it helps, and it does that. It does that part of the inflammation in the nerves, like when the nerves are inflamed, when our emotions are inflamed, the CBD, it's almost like a conditioner for our body. It just soothes those nerves. It helps reduce the inflammation. And so if you're taking it every day and it has the omegas in it, it's kind of like oiling. My mom jokes about her being like the Tin Man if she doesn't take her CBD, because she gets really stiff. So it helps her joints move better. It reduces the inflammation in her body so that she can move around better, so that her arthritis isn't flared up. And it's just been a life changer for her and many, many others. So once I learned how to help her, that was my only goal. I had no plans to launch a business, to launch my own line, but I started becoming the go-to person. because I was sharing part of my story through Facebook with my friends and family, letting them know how mom was doing. We tried this and it worked, and things like that. And finally, one of the manufacturers, she was like, we need you on the front lines. Like, you need to start your own line. We need people like you out there educating and showing people how they can help heal themselves, And at first I was like, who does that? It's like, I don't think I can handle that right now. So and then about a year later, I was like, you know what? I think I'm ready. So
what is it that you're helping now with?
Yeah, so I help people reduce their pain. I help them reduce stress and anxiety, and I help them sleep better. Those are the three major areas.
And they all increase quality of life so much. I mean,
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes, I have people come to me in tears, literally. Like they'll come. I set up at my local farmers market, and when I do that, I get to do a lot of face-to-face. A lot of one-on-one. People come up to me and they'll kind of look around and they're like, so I haven't slept in like 3 months and I'm having night terrors, and I just broke up with this guy and he was really mean and I'm scared, trauma. They come to me with their trauma, their their illnesses, and they're like, I've been going to the doctor over this, I'm not getting any, I'm not getting the results I'm looking for. And I think one of the reasons that people respond well to me and they trust me is because am I like, oh, you don't need a doctor, just fix it yourself. I'm not that person, because if it wasn't for doctors and nurses, my mom wouldn't be here. I like to find a balance middle. If you can do something yourself, then do it yourself. If you can't, call your doctor. So at the market, people come and they tell me what they need. I help them find which products they need, and they take them home and try them. And then I do end up getting those messages and those phone calls and those text messages. And it's been a wonderful journey.
It must be very rewarding.
It is. Mm-hmm. It is. When you have someone come up to you and they're like, one of my favorites is that there's a young man with Tourette's, and he's in his probably mid-20s. And with the Tourette's comes a lot of anxiety, a lot of tics, physical tics and everything. And he has a hard time sleeping. And the CBD that I carry is lipid infused. So it's like one of them is. And so it's this rich gold oil full of cannabinoids, and it works wonders for his Tourette's. And so he and his mom come find me all around town, wherever I am. They're like, are you going to be at the market? Are you going to be at this place? Like we want to see you. They don't want to order online. They want to come see me. And so that is really sweet. While others are very happy just getting online and be like, yeah, ship it to my house,
What would you recommend people, and what do you tell usually people that come to you for the first time when it comes about essential oils and CBD?
Sure. I tell them just to be open to try something new, and don't expect like an immediate fix. It's not going to cure. It's not so much that it cures things, or it's not so much that it makes you feel a certain way. It's what you don't feel, like the pain and the anxiety. There's since CBD comes from cannabis, which is related to marijuana, people, or from hemp, which is a cannabis plant like marijuana, I should say. People think that they're going to feel something when they take CBD, and they're like, oh, well, I took it 2 or 3 times and I didn't feel anything. And I'm like, well, no, you're not going to feel anything. It's what you don't feel. It's after taking it for 5, 7, 10 days. It takes a while to get in your system. Then you start reducing the stress and reducing the anxiety and reducing the inflammation, but it's a slow process.
But when you think of how long many of those people have suffered living with these issues, it's actually not so long compared to how long the pain has already been in their system.
Right, right. Sometimes they'll come to me and they'll buy a bottle and they'll start taking it, and they won't realize how much better they're feeling, because they're just going about their day and they're like, they don't really notice. And then the bottle will run out, and there'll be about 3 or 4 or 5 days in between, and then they'll start messaging me or calling me, and they're like, I didn't know it was working. and now my back hurts really bad again. Where are you going to be? You know, or can you ship it to me? What did I order? Because I'd like it again. Or they'll send me a picture of it. They're like, where do I find this? So that, you know, it's reassuring, because then they know that it helps instead of me just telling them that it helps.
Yeah, they really feel it.
Yes.
Thank you so much for sharing your story with us today, Michele. I just love this whole holistic approach of helping people. I love that you see yourself as a complementary aspect to medicine. And I'm sure that your work helps women to take charge of their own health and learn how to heal their bodies naturally. I think it's a skill we lost over the course of history. And guys, if you would like to connect with Michele, head over to her website, jubileeofwellness.com, and check out all the information she has there. It's just great. And as I understand, you also ship, is that correct?
Yes, yeah. I ship all over the US.
So that's perfect. Guys, if you like this episode, give me a like and a review, and share it with anyone you think can benefit from listening to Michele's story and the work she does. Also, make sure you follow me for more inspiring stories. Until next time at Raw and Real with Stefanie Fernandes. Bye now.